Hey, welcome to Mary Trump's Nerd Avengers. I'm Jen Taub in for Mary, who is on the mend because she finally got COVID. I guess it's a rite of passage, not a fabulous one, but still true. And I am so happy to be here to share with you the news of the day. I'm going to keep it short. Let's dive in. Hey, Brian and Waj, so good to see you. Um,
Oh,
I mean, I can kind of see you.
So good to
You're
be
a little
seen. Well, you look a little shiny to me there, Jen.
I am. For those of you who don't watch Morning Jen, I had a little mishap this morning involving my eye drops. I thought I was putting eye drops in because, everyone has COVID. I don't, but I was like, oh, you're feeling like sympathetic COVID. And I grabbed these eye drops. And it turns out they're these like organic argan oil eardrops. So I dropped them in my eyes. Eye drops sting, and I'm like, ow. And then everything is blurry and I can't see it, you guys. And I was looking at it and it's like there's a drop on it. I think this is a drop. I'm like, this must be an eye drop. And then finally it dawned on me that I had another bottle, which you should never have bottles near each other that look the same. So I fixed it. I hope I'm not
Well, my
blind.
question is, can you hear well through your eyes?
Well, the question is, did I put the eye drops in my ears? But
And you can see through your ears.
I mean, okay, so that's how my day is going. But welcome, guys. Waj, I haven't seen you in a while. How is your day going? And what mishap have you had today?
I was actually almost gonna do the exact same thing. I was about to put these eardrops in my eye, and I realized, oh, nope, can't do it. Jen will do it for me. I swear to
Yeah.
God. So yeah, the universe made you choose that sliding door moment. But other than that, our entire family went through COVID last week. Now, my wife, as you probably have heard, I've said this many times, is like healthy, attractive,
Sarah,
works out,
yes.
yes, runs, has abs. Like she got this COVID and she was sick as a dog for 3 days. Now, why do I
Oh
mention this?
no.
This COVID that's going around like hotcakes everywhere, folks. Please get yourself vaccinated. Stay safe. There's a new vaccine coming out for this variant. So it tore through our house, but I'm usually the first line of defense that falls. I didn't get it. All my kids got it. I didn't get it. So thank God, knock on wood.
Is that when I say mashallah or is that the wrong
Alhamdulillah.
thing?
We say alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Sorry. Okay, I don't want to mess that one up.
Not
You got
Kamala.
it though. It's good. It's close. You get brownie points.
Thank you. And Brian, what's up with you? You look happy and shiny, but not in the same way I am.
Well, I gargled in my eyes, so I'm pretty good. Put the mouthwash in my eyes, gargled, and I'm fine. No, it's all good. All good in the hood. We got out of the DNC, and everybody had seemed to have gotten COVID, and knock on wood, I still haven't. So we're hanging.
I have not talked to you since the DNC, but it was nice to wave at you in the chaos. I think I saw you twice. That was awesome.
There was a lot of chaos in that, and it was the most eclectic. I got to tell you, there was Wednesday and Thursday night was the most eclectic group I've ever been with. After going after the DNC closed to talk to people and get the color and the commentary, and it ended up being me, Harry Dunn, the Capitol Police officer.
Oh, wow.
A friend of mine who's Hasidic reporter, White House reporter, and Michael Cohen. And we walked into the the Swalwell party, and Harry goes, a cop, a convict, a comedian, and a rabbi walk into a bar looking for a congressman. That was
Holy shit. Did you get that on video? That's incredible.
yeah. We got pictures of it, and some guy photobombed us from Arizona who didn't know the DNC was there, and they had tried to buy his rooms, and he had these free tickets. So he showed up and he's photobombing everybody that's there going, I know who that is. I know who that is.
Wait,
so
where was this? Was it a party at a hotel or was it at a restaurant?
It was at the Gwynn Hotel downtown, Chicago.
Oh my God.
That's like a Reservoir Dog. That's like a nerd Reservoir Dogs moment. You should have just like filmed, like walking in slow motion to Eric Swalwell's party.
I mean, so guys, I know, I know that Wad, you were not at the DNC, but you were, like, I'm sure watching it. Do you have any of your DNC stories except the whole family was sick?
I was there vicariously through you, and I was just very amused to see the childlike glee of Jen in all her photos and videos. I love unbridled, sincere enthusiasm, because I feel like as we get older, we're told to stifle it. And Jen's like, I'm gonna go all in. It was like a 12-year-old girl for the first time at the DNC with that type of enthusiasm, with your intellect. So I thought, I was there in 2016, and because I've been there before, I understand the difference between actually being there and versus what we see. And so in a
is that fangirling out? She's fangirling out.
Oh my God. Sorry,
I
sprung that. Important. I sprung that on Mercedes, and now I don't know how to take it off.
We should just have it. We should just have it there, because I think it's, I think what it does, it captures the type of chaotic energy of the DNC that lasts for like 3 days, and then you come home, you're like, oh, I did that. That was wild.
Well, yeah. Right, because I remember it didn't feel that. I was really, obviously, you can see exuberant, and there are moments of chaos and learning and all this bonding and all this stuff. But for the most part, you're just kind of, it was a lot of work, a lot of, focus, right? And then I get home, and I was like, to my husband, I was saying to Michael, like, this seems like normal-ish. But he's like, wait. And so I get home, and of course my banner on Twitter is like the big jumbotron of Kamala up accepting the speech, from this like box that I was in, which is incredible that we had scored because because of Mary, obviously. And then I'm looking at this going, now, holy shit, I was there. But speaking of which, this brings me to the fact that we have an incredible team, as you know, at Mary Trump Media, and we have Mercedes right here, and there are others. And, we didn't just, do this on our own. It takes a flippin' village. And I want to share with you our last word on the DNC. It's kind of like an epilogue. I think that it's here. And I think, Mercedes, if you can find it. And
Harris elected and ensuring you never hold power again. See you at the polls. The Mary Trump Media team. Rain keeps falling.
Emmy. That's the first time I saw it. That was awesome. Mary Trump as Judd Nelson. Never would have imagined.
I would never have picked that.
I mean, it's so good. It's so flippin' good. And watching, you see how the sausage is made when Mary is coming down the steps. That was like literally like at the end of the night when like the security's like kicking everyone out of the United Center, and they're filming this. And I'm downstairs trying to take home, souvenirs, anything that was not like nailed to the wall. Like I literally took down the poster that, oh, you might appreciate this, Brian. You know how like you have different credentials for different levels? Yeah. I took down one of those posters that was like stuck to the wall that tells you where you can get in. It says you must have your credentials with you at all times. I think that's such a funny thing.
I keep the credentials. They're back there, hanging right there.
Yeah. I have to keep that at my home office and not at school because I do feel strongly about being pro different policies, but not being partisan in front of students. There's nothing unlawful about it or even unethical, but for me, I want to be inclusive. So I do not put any of my many Harris walls or I did score a Kamala Brat, button. Anyway, but let's talk about, we don't have to keep talking about the convention.
You know what you remind me of, Jen? There's a great Denzel Washington story. I don't know if you've seen this, where he loses the first time he was nominated and Sean Connery wins for The Untouchables. And he tells Jamie Foxx, he goes, listen, I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. So as he leaves, he sees a giant tray of food and he just takes it. His mom says, take that. So I just remember you were like, it's a classic, like, child of immigrant story. He goes, I'm leaving with something.
I'm coming out of here with something. Well, that's also, that's a kind of we call it a shoot trophy, but reporters, wherever you cover something specifically historic, or you go someplace significant, you always take a little something with you. Like, That's then there's a few things hanging on my wall behind me that qualify for
Well,
that.
Brian, what I've learned from this is you should, if you're me, the ideal is to take something with you that's not edible because it's not going to make it home. I swear to you.
That's
Like,
why it's on the wall. If I took it edible,
Yes.
I'd be 500 pounds right now.
Yeah, no, I when I got the one time
Food.
for a White House Christmas party that I got to go to, as I was invited with a group, not surprisingly, if you know me now, I was wondering, why am I with these really interesting young people? Because I was invited with like the creators, right? And I was there, and they had the most amazing, just the thin, crispiest, most delicious gingerbread man cookies. I literally did, and Roger will appreciate the immigrant child, like my grandmother, like my Jewish grandmother, like I opened my handbag, like it was a little clutch handbag. It looked like it belonged to an old lady. I think it did at one point because it was probably like my great aunt's. And I opened it up and I filled it full of cookies. And I swear to you, they did not make it home. They did not make it home.
Well done. I'm proud of you.
Every White House I've covered, for every president I've covered, I've got napkins that say the White House from going to some official event. And I've kept those from Reagan on. And it's amazing how they change. And it's really amazing if you look how they change between the Democrats and Republicans, and I won't go into that. But each one is kind of unique. So that's like I said, if I kept food, I wouldn't fit on the screen.
So this would be a good time to pivot from all of our fanboy and fangirling let's pivot from joy to grievance. Let's pivot from joy and unity to grievance, paranoia, and destruction. Are you
transition.
Good? Are we
Great
talking about
transition.
Trump at the funeral? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
Arlington?
you got it.
How could I figure that out?
So, Brian, can you lay this out? I think people have been following this, but can you do the who, what, where, when, why, and why the fuck, how this happened for us?
If you haven't seen the photographs, it kind of tells you the whole story. Donald Trump is at a gravesite at Arlington National Cemetery with his thumb up. And so they walk in supposedly to pay their respects to the dearly departed or to, a service. And that wasn't what happened. He went there for a campaign bit, and he got called on it by a worker. And look, the people that work there at the Arlington National Cemetery are among some of the nicest, kindest, professional people I've ever worked with. They've always been straight with me. They've always been nice to me. You just say, I get it. And there are certain guidelines. You don't go there and take photographs for a promotion. This is a somber place. This is a place where we respect the people who have given the most to our country. And by the way, if you don't know, Arlington National Cemetery, guess whose house that used to be? That was you may have known him from the Civil War, Robert E. Lee. That was his. Yes. And the original, and what happened is they said, all right, screw it. We're gonna close this down. This is during the Civil War, and it was the Army, one of the Army generals that said, fine, we're just gonna start burying our hallowed dead there. And that's what they did. So it has grown from that to a place of supreme reverence. And the Trump team, when they showed up there, as that shows, to lay the wreath and, to the unknown, they got in a fight with the guys who were just there to make sure that you're there for the right reasons. And they shoved the guy. And then they came out afterwards and said that he had a mental problem. And totally disrespectful. Right. And which is amazing to me. They doubled down on it as if they were right. And I think people are getting tired, I think, of Donald Trump's BS, but this one just pales. There's nothing like just disrespecting, our hallowed dead and laughing about it, doing a thumbs up, and then saying the guy that's only doing his job had a mental problem. Now, I know these people, they filed a report. I did make a phone call, and they said, look, we asked him the same as we ask everyone. They didn't go after him. They weren't mean to him, but he chose because he's Donald Trump to be divisive, angry, and petulant.
Yeah, and
that's it. That's all.
Sometimes I wish you wouldn't hold back, Brian. It's hard to read you. By the way, I think it turned out it was a woman that was the employee. But do you have thoughts on this yourself?
Yeah, look, the U.S. Army about 40 minutes ago just released a statement that confirmed the employee's account and talked about the policy and procedure of. There you go, perfect. Thank you, Mercedes
Yes.
and Jen.
Yeah.
And look, number one, it's a violation of federal law. Number two,
Shocking.
they physically manhandled a person who, according to the U.S. Army, was professional in their request, telling the Donald Trump team, hey, please don't do this. Three, they doubled down anyway and then did it. And I just want to remind folks, look, I'm about 15, 20 minutes away from Arlington National Cemetery. You know, that there's a section there specifically which is reserved for, you know, these are men and women who fought and died. These are people who fought against the Nazis. These are folks who saved our democracy. There is a decorum that doesn't even have to be, you know, said. You just know as an adult when you go to a cemetery, any cemetery, but specifically this cemetery, you know, you are respectful. And I'll give an example, personal example. I buried my grandmother. I found the plot. You know, every time I go to the cemetery to visit her, every time in the Bay Area, I have not once, Jen, I thought about it. Have I ever done it? I have not once gone there with a photo like this. I go there, I say a prayer, I talk to my grandmother. You know, I brought my kids to visit their great grandmother. My kids.
What? You're not going to do a photo op and do a TikTok at your grandmother's gravesite?
I took a photo with my kids. I saw it yesterday, and it's a overhead photo of my kids like touching the ground. You know, visiting.
That's respectful. That's respectful.
And so that's what I want to get at. That this man, Donald Trump, is utterly devoid of decorum, respect. When Maya Angelou said, person shows you who they are the first time, believe it. It's not the first time, Jen. First, second, third, fourth, fifth.
And the first time that day was.
and the reason why he went to Arlington, which is a piece of the story that people are kind of forgetting,
yes,
is because he has been on a rampage against veterans the past few weeks, refusing to apologize because apology is seen as weakness in the MAGA world, because he elevated the Congressional Medal of Freedom by denigrating the Congressional Medal of Honor. He gave the Congressional Medal of Freedom to his billionaire donor, Miriam Adelson, and said again and again, even after he was told, warned, you know, pleaded with, please do not denigrate the Congressional Medal of Honor that is given to men and women who serve. And he thinks people who serve and who sacrifice, Jen, are suckers. I'm quoting, according to General Kelly, suckers and losers. He also said he doesn't want to be photographed next to an amputee when he was president because it makes him look bad. He mocked and ridiculed John McCain for getting caught. He ridicules our law enforcement as the deep state. I'm giving this a top of the head. I'm giving you a repeated example of his behavior. He thinks he cannot comprehend, Jen, that any individual would sacrifice anything, let alone their life, for a cause greater than themselves, because he has refused to sacrifice anything.
He can't understand a cause greater than himself.
There you go. And this is who he is. This is who he is. He doubled down to rectify the mistake because he got the poll numbers and said veterans might switch off. And this is what he does.
Can I share with you guys? You know, you are making sense, and you are expressing. Yeah, you are. You're expressing well-reasoned outrage, but yet not shock that Donald Trump is exploiting the suffering of others to aggrandize himself. I want to play this for you and see if you have some thoughts, because his VP sidekick, JD Vance, kind of did one of these Leslie Nielsen memes, nothing to see here. So let's watch this and talk on the other side. Oops, sorry.
Guys in the media, you're acting like Donald Trump filmed a TV commercial at a gravesite. He was there providing emotional support to a lot of brave Americans who lost loved ones they never should have lost, and there happened to be a camera there, and somebody gave him permission to have that camera there.
Any thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, he's a lying sack of shit. What do you want? This is JD Vance. He has his. Anybody with permanent eyeliner under his eyes writes hillbilly elegy without being a hillbilly. What are you going to take away from this guy? He's a moron, and he's hurting his campaign. But, you know, I did want to say something. Wise, if you've ever been to Arlington, and I can't state this enough, you will walk through those rows of graves, and you will see, you know, the eternal flame, and you see all this, you know, it's very somber. Oftentimes, you will see people in tears. Yeah. And you will see them kneeling. You will see them praying. Never have I ever gone to Arlington National Cemetery and see someone with their thumbs up doing a photo op trying to score a commercial. And it's more in that to me. Look, I covered that freaking Donald Trump for 4 years in the White House. None of this surprises me. But what I think it is speaking to a strategy that the Democrats are employing is like, let Donnie be Donnie. He's our best campaign tool. So go for it, Don, because no matter how small it is, he'll step on it every single time.
Jen, before you pivot,
the
one thing I also want to mention is the people ask, well, why don't they pivot, right? Why doesn't Trump and JD Vance actually learn from their mistakes? And I want to remind folks, this is who they are.
That's right.
They can't help it. And if you don't believe me, take this example of Donald Trump being even more offensive towards veterans while trying to court them, with JD Vance given essentially a rope by Kristen Welker. Hey, you know this whole childless cat ladies? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Do you want to apologize? Maybe you were taken out of context. Do you want to just lie? And he goes, no.
You're calling it a sarcastic comment.
Sure.
And yet some women, and you got the feedback in real time, felt like it was a gut punch to them personally. Do you regret making that comment?
Look, I regret certainly that a lot of people took it the wrong way, and I certainly regret that the DNC and Kamala Harris lied about it.
Do you regret what you said, Senator?
Look, Kristen, I'm going to say things from time to time that people disagree with. I'm a real person. I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to say things sarcastically.
Really bad
and I
makeup.
think that what's important is that we focus on the policy. There are certainly going to be things that I say. If I'm elected vice president, people are going to say, well, I wish he had said that differently. I think it's most important to actually be the person I actually am and to say those sarcastic comments were made in the service of a real substantive point. This country has become too anti-family. It's too expensive to afford a house. It's too expensive to afford groceries. Donald Trump and I want to change that. And unless we get better leadership, we're not going to.
But again, just very quickly, given that people have told you directly, have spoken out, have said that they were offended, they were hurt by those comments, do you wish you never made those childless cat lady comments?
I think that it's much more important for me to just be a normal human being who sometimes says things that people disagree with.
Well, that's impossible. Nice try. Moving on.
Making a joke 3 years ago is not in the top 10 of the list.
All right, another
Nothing to see here, folks.
sarcastic comment.
Sure.
And yet,
Watch. So if you say this game, you guys say anything, I'm just gonna pull up the clip. Or
I swear, for people who are watching at home, I swear, you might think, oh, Jen told me to assist. That was just top of the head, and Jen was like, I'm ready. So that was a real-time assist, and Jen and Mercedes, like a DJ mixer, just coming right in.
Well done.
Okay, and it's my fault because when Mercedes tries to take a clip down, I do it at the same time, and we keep just. So I'm not pressing any buttons. You've seen the disaster when I deal with eye drops. I shouldn't be allowed near the controls. Okay, you guys. Okay, so I want to address something on there. One thing JD Vance said, besides refusing to apologize because he isn't sorry, is he blames. He says, blames obviously Biden and Harris for the price of groceries, and this is one of the things that every opportunity they have, they're trying to follow the Rich Lowry, op-ed about winning on character, which I thought was satire, but they're trying to attack on character, but also on, lying about things like the top issues are the economy, meaning, inflation and crime. And by the way, another thing is, I wanted to throw this in, they also, what I've been reading just today, is that one of the reasons the plan Donald Trump's team had about that Arlington Cemetery ad that they were filming, they wanted to pretend that it was an official ceremony that was taking place at the cemetery and that Harris didn't bother to show up. And that was foiled because they effed it up by throwing fists and yelling at people.
I'm so shocked, Jen. Come on. Donald Trump lying. Who would have thought it? Donald Trump creating false media. Who would thought it? That's unbelievable. This is the same guy, by the way, who in the White House briefing room accused us of being fake media, but then encouraged us to look at his falsely generated fake media. And said, well, I don't know if it's true or not, but watch it. So,
so let me, sorry.
A moron like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So let's talk about inflation And then let's talk about crime. I'm sure you've been following that earlier this week, a hearing began in this antitrust case out in Portland, Oregon, where the government, U.S. government, is trying to block a proposed merger between the grocery giants Kroger and Albertsons. Instead of calling them giants, I could call them oligopolist businesses or monopolist type businesses. And the reason why they want to do this is because because big is bad. Basically, that is what Brandeis believed, and it is true. And these big concentrations of power result in, pricing power and gouging consumers because there's not real competition. And so, did you guys follow?
Yes.
Okay. Brian, tell me about this Kroger executive where we finally get to read his emails.
I tell you what's going to be funny, Jen, is honestly, there are people who are defending this going, it's not that big of a deal. I shop at Ralph's out in LA, and that's that's different. No, actually, Ralph's is, hey, thanks to the Big Lebowski, everybody knows who Ralph's is, but Ralph's is owned by Kroger. By the way, Safeway owns Pavilions. By the way, Albertsons owns several of them, and they are reducing the number. It's basically a concentration of wealth. And if you want to know why, it's Robert Wright, I believe, pointed it out.
Yes.
This is not inflation. This is price gouging. They can fix prices because they own all the methods of distribution. So when you have so it'd be nice to take a look at these emails. It's going to be nice to see the inner workings of what's going on, because Kroger's, by the way, when I was a kid, was a small little place, and it was an independent grocer out of, I think it was Cincinnati area. And in Louisville, where I live, that was the one. And then there was Safeway that came in and others, and Kroger bought them all out. So it is moving in the direction where there's fewer and fewer distributors. They own all of the production, all of the distribution, and they want to convince you that you have a choice by renaming things. And
right.
that goes back to the old George Carlin thing.
Let me just say, I'm going to get you can do George Carlin. I never want to pass that up, but I just want to inject some details here. Milk and eggs, my friends, right? And I just pulled this quote from this article in Newsweek from yesterday that on milk and eggs, retail inflation is what the executive wrote, has been significantly higher than cost inflation. Translation, what he is saying is that, yes, COVID supply chains resulted in the cost of them. Kroger does not have a farm, right? They're buying eggs and milk from others, that they used the excuse of COVID as well as their own pricing power to raise prices beyond what they needed to. And that hurt all of us. And let me just show you, Brian, you mentioned this, so I had this handy for you. Here's from
very
Kroger's.
Good at this. Thanks.
You know what? I had a show
out there.
I had a show this morning, and so, sometimes I have these things. But Kroger company, as you mentioned, look at that. He wasn't lying. Brian actually fact checks. We have Kroger owns supermarkets, which was including Kroger's, Ralph's, and Dillon's. Who knew that? But they also, operate out of department stores like Fred Meyer and on and on and on. Of course, that is just Kroger, not Albertsons. So.
Yeah, the frightening part about this is that most people don't know. And I mentioned Carlin. He was talking about oil and cars and how they've all consolidated. And he said they give the illusion of choice, right? Because you've got a Ford Pinto or a Ford Mustang, but they're all Ford, they're all GM. It's the illusion of choice. But the fact of the matter is, if you just even look at the labels at Ralph's, Kroger brand right there. It's not a big secret, not hard to fact check. And Harris Teeter people, that's one of the, the smug little places that you go and you think, wow, I'm going to an independent market, Harris Teeter. No, you're not. Kroger's making money off of that. And they got you convinced that you're doing something for the environment. And it's not true.
Can I say something, Jen? The reason why this is a big deal, I think, is it should infuriate Americans that it's not just Kroger. Subway came out with a story, I don't know if you saw just this couple of days ago, that they had hiked up the prices of their foot-long sandwich meals, which I used to subside on when I was extremely poor in my late 20s, early 30s. It used to be
relatable.
It used to be $4.99. Remember that? There was like the value meals, Mercedes. Like everyone who's a struggling.
And you would eat half of it and save the other half. Am I right?
That was lunch and dinner.
That was lunch and dinner. That's when we were so poor that we had to. You got six inches for lunch. During the peak between lunch and dinner, you ate the chips or the cookies, and then at night you ate the other 6. And along the way, you sipped on the drink. Right. So I'm not the only one. That used to keep us alive. So during the pandemic, the last 4 years, in some places, Subway jacked up the price of the footlong to $12, $13.99. And now in some places, they've just magically brought it down to $6.99 for a limited offer. And it was because they realized and they admitted that they could jack up the prices during COVID. Now, why should this piss you off? COVID was a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic in which over 1 million Americans died. We were scrambling, folks, for toilet paper. We were scrambling for masks. Remember that time? I know we block it out due to trauma, right? And so these executives saying, you know what? We could still make killer profit. Maybe in order to help humanity, we can even reduce by 30 cents to help people. They decided to double and triple the prices on who needs milk and eggs. Everybody needs milk and eggs.
That's right.
Milk, breads, everyone, right? And so Kroger decided we want even more profits. Listen, you dumbass Americans who are struggling to survive. There's no vaccine. We're going to milk you out of everything before you drop to the ground or you go to the ICU. We're going to raise the price of milk and eggs because we can. And for the last couple of years, a lot of consumers, consumer watch groups, and Jen, you research all these groups. They're like, listen, this is dirty money. This is like corporate. This is like almost like a crime, the fact that they're price gouging. And Republicans and Trump have used this to blame Democrats for the economy, right? And you look at these rural areas, these swing states where they can actually win, and these swing state voters like just rising costs. Maybe Republicans will come in. So I'm so glad that it took forever, but Democrats are honing in on this because I think it gives you a villain. It connects the dots for folks. And I think if Democrats laser in on corruption, greed, top 1%, Trump, billionaires, it's a winner.
Waj, I'm glad that you mentioned this because it is important to see that this isn't just inflation out of control and the government not doing anything, even though the same people who say that also believe in unbridled free markets. But let's that aside. You also mentioned, you said, Jen, you research these groups. As it happens, there is an advocate and author. Her name is Lindsay Owen, and she works for Groundwork Collective, and she's writing a book on this topic, on the corporate price gouging. Also, I would like to mention our friend, John Nichols, who I'm sure you know from The Nation. He was hanging out at the DNC. Just love him. He's from Wisconsin as well. And he has a book he wrote called Pandemic Profiteers about this and how it went down. And we're not just talking about the people engaging in insider trading inside the government. We're talking about this kind of behavior. And I think it's really helpful. There's nothing like seeing an internal email of an executive.
Yes.
Because, look, that's the confession. That's the top line story, because all of us, can say what we say, but people think it's a theory, right? And something is a theory until you actually have, the in black and white, what they did. So they criticize Harris, Biden, and then Harris on prices, but they also claim, which is not true, that crime is up. And I want to play this for you because I always love the receipts.
David, about what Donald Trump talks about a lot, which is the rising crime rates. He called DNC host city Chicago a war zone that is worse than Afghanistan. But here's the thing. FBI data shows a clear drop in violent crime since Trump left office.
Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, what do you expect from Donald Trump? He's full of shit. What he does, But here's a real good point to bring it home. I worked for a crime show for years called America's Most Wanted, and
jealous. Wait, just stop for a second. What a gig! Tell me how you got that gig after you tell your story.
Well, you've never did. That's a huge thing just to randomly drop in the middle of
Well, I was after I pissed off a president down in San Antonio, and that was George Bush, the senior. I kind of made news when I got canned for being rude to the president. The next thing I know, I get a phone call from the EP of America's Most Wanted. He says, "I have a real need for an arrogant, obnoxious investigative reporter. Are you available?" And I said, "Mom, is that you?" The next thing you know, I'm in DC. So that's where I was. That's how I got there 30 years ago. And I covered a lot of presidential politics because we would always be linked to the DOJ. And where I was going with all of it is, if you take a look at the figures, there are always going to be people who are going to taint the figures. And one of the things that we did very well at AMW and look, they were on Fox Network, but it was an independent production. But one of the things that we did was break down those figures, and you can make them say anything. Like on the border, you can make them say that it's a problem, but it's not. And in the case of this, when you're quoting the actual FBI figures, that's money. Those people are dead balls on accurate with what they bring to you. And so I'm very thankful, because I often criticize us for not understanding crime figures and letting politicians get away with the crap that they get away with. But when you have to sit down over a table of 6 or 7 people and justify a story based on those figures, you begin to appreciate what it is that the FBI does in putting those facts and figures together. So at the end of the day, if you're going to say that we have an increase of crime and it's only anecdotal, which is, like there may be one of the biggest things is that it's really the crime is rising in the immigrant community. They're out killing everybody. No, in the immigrant community, violent crimes are often lower than in the average population.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put those things in context. And the fact that they actually did this, it gives me a little bit of faith in my own profession again, because these are not to be trifled with because of the emotion. And that's exactly where Donald Trump and his minions go, is to make you afraid, to make you scared, to make sure that you believe that there's an evildoer out there after you and that the Democrats are behind it. And it's a load of crap.
Jen, can I, follow up on that and say the reason, if you take the big view of this, why it's so important that we're finally talking about this, because there was a failure of media due to their corporate both sides in not talking about what the Biden-Harris administration was doing to combat, high prices, inflation, crime, immigration, which used to frustrate the Biden administration. But since Harris-Walz have taken over, you've seen a kind of, it's like Dark Brandon on steroids. They go all in. And so it's about repetition. And you were at the DNC and you saw how many times people mentioned that crime is lower.
Right.
And then they compared it to Donald Trump, the criminal. Excellent strategy, right? There are 3 vulnerable areas for Democrats, which they've closed the gap in the past month, just to do the messaging, is the economy, immigration, and crime. If you looked at the polls before Harris-Walz, huge gaps that were in favor of Trump and said, maybe this will give him the edge. But now you keep repeating it. And people are like, oh, Donald Trump sank the immigration bill. Oh, crime was actually higher during Donald Trump's reign. Oh, Donald Trump is actually a criminal. Oh, price gouging. That's why prices are so damn high.
Yes.
Rinse, repeat.
Right.
That's what Donald does.
And you've already seen 2 things. Look at the polls, because I've been following this pretty, closely. It's shrunk on immigration, crime, economy. Harris is now like here with Donald, and corporate media and legacy institutions, I think we all agree, who have failed, are forced to finally cover it in a responsible way.
So I'm so glad you're talking about this, because it touches on the 3 M's. I'm sure you've heard Nancy Pelosi talk about this, and it's just sort of, standard, standard heuristic on campaigns, that you need to mobilize, you need an excellent message, and you need money. And right now you're talking about really dealing with the message, and it's breaking through finally. Yeah. In terms of mobilization, I want to talk about something new that Harris is doing. If Hillary Clinton was criticized for never going to Michigan when it was obviously a swing state, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going everywhere, including, I'm sure you just heard, a bus tour of rural Georgia.
Brilliant.
Why is that so significant, Brian?
Well, it's significant because in rural Georgia, that's where the red flag waves the hardest and fastest. So if you're getting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz out there actually meeting with people on a bus and train tour, then by God, you're reaching. And look, the reason why they're doing it is because Georgia is up for grabs, and it looks like they have a real good shot at securing Georgia. So it's hearkening back to the days of the train tours and FDR, and even back to Lincoln. Meeting with people on a one-on-one basis is pretty good. That's a New Hampshire. Before you get to the major primaries and the major campaigns, that's what they do in New Hampshire. That's what they do in Iowa. And the fact that they're there tells you that they believe that they can get that state. And more importantly, it's an introduction to two people that many people in rural Georgia may have not seen or seen enough of. So just to let you know, there was a recent out of the White House, a recent guidance that the tour has begun and that they're meeting with people and shopkeepers and in restaurants. Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool. And if you're a rural Georgian and you're going, well, I loves me some Donald Trump, which a lot of them do, and then you meet and get to greet, well, you go, well, hell, they're not that bad. I'll listen to them. And folks, I'll tell you this much, honest to God, most Trumpers I know are just kind, decent people. And if you meet them one-on-one, I had the experience of having my rental car break down in a rural part of America, and I had my press passes on, and this car pulled up to me with a Confederate flag and a Donald Trump sticker. And he looked at me, he says, "You with the national press?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, I'll give you a ride into town, boy. We'll help you get your car fixed." And I mean, just when you deal with them one-on-one, they're very nice, very good, God-fearing people. And so a president of the United States, candidate for that office, doing that means everything.
So, we actually, due to the lightning speed of Mercedes, now have a clip that Waj referred to in our private chat, actually showing us how women in rural Georgia were responding to Kamala Harris.
Damn, you all are good today. You say not there.
So tell me, how do you feel about Kamala Harris coming to town?
Exuberant, just elated that this community is going to have a first-hand contact with this incredible person who is, I'm going to cry. I'm so happy that a woman may be in charge, and a very capable woman with integrity.
Yeah, I mean, that took a minute, folks. I brought it up in the chat. Jen's like, "Find it." I found it. Mercedes like, "On it." And then Brian led into it naturally, and Jen.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted you to comment on the substance, like not the process,
but so I think exactly what Brian was saying is reflected in that clip. And oftentimes we forget the rural community, right? They are away from major population centers. They desperately need Wi-Fi. They desperately need services. And I've been saying, please do this tour, right? And the fact that Harris and Walz are doing it, I believe this is what will give them Georgia. It'll give them Georgia by more than just 10,000 votes. And then I hope someone's listening and paying attention. Do this in North Carolina. Why? North Carolina has the largest rural population of any state next to Texas. People forget that. It's the second largest rural population. If they do the same bus tour through the rural populations of North Carolina, which, by the way, it's not just all white and Christians, a lot of people of color, folks.
That's right.
I bet you that they will look back and say that is what really put us over the top in Georgia and North Carolina. And so I love the fact that they're doing this. The old school, like Brian said, meet and greet. Come talk to us. Come meet us. Oh, Kamala, she's so lovely. And Tim Walz is like my dad. And, they're nice. And I'm sick and tired of this Donald guy who's pissing off veterans and women. You know what? Let's give him a shot. That could be the margin, Jen. That could be the margin.
That's right.
That pads the lead. And no matter what happens in Pennsylvania, she could be like, I got Georgia, I got North Carolina. All of it's now gravy.
Yeah. Well, I want to add the big assist that you have to give to this effort. I talked to Joe Walsh, not of the Eagles fame, but former Tea Party congressman that ran against Trump for about 3 Scaramucci's ago, and and he was on a telephone call with 70,000 Republicans.
Ooh.
Him and Adam Kinzinger, when they formed the Republicans for Harris movement.
Was it a Zoom?
It was 70,000. Now that's huge. And he went to New Hampshire this week. They're going to North Carolina. Wow. They're going to Georgia. Those people coming in on the heels of Harris and Walz are going to be instrumental in driving some of those uncommitted voters, and more importantly, some of the Republicans who are fed up with Donald Trump, into the Harris-Walz camp. And as they said in the, and we all saw it. I was there for it. You were there for it, Jen. It's one of the few moments in my life where I actually felt gooseflesh, was when you had the mayor of Mesa, Arizona saying,
yes,
this isn't the party of McCain, and we owe what's left nothing. And Kinzinger coming out going, Donald Trump has suffocated the life out of the Republican Party. You all are patriots. We're putting the country above party. And man, if that doesn't move you, then wait till you get those people on the ground like Kinzinger.
Door knocking? Oh my God.
Or not, and the people, not only the top people, but there will be people from your state that that are Republicans that are assisting this effort. I think that the coordinated effort of having Harris-Walz in those states and having the Republicans work the doors for them will mean that it's going to. I don't, I'm not predicting a landslide, but I'm saying that it's going to be close. But I think at this point it tips towards the Democrats, simply because of who they have working and how they're working it, versus a guy who's standing at Arlington National Cemetery picking fights with a worker over trying to shoot an ad, trying to disprove that he hates veterans as much as he does. I mean, if you're undecided at this point, folks, I don't know what to tell you.
I think it's unfair of you to suggest that all Donald Trump is doing is staying in his basement and having press conferences and also, going to, Arlington Cemetery and picking fights, because he is also spending a lot of time, Brian, on True Social.
Mar-a-Lago.
And True Social. And I want to, I mean, yesterday, I saw this thing, today that Ben Meiselas put up of Donald, it's a list, and I have to put on 2 slides for you of all the things that Donald Trump posted on True Social before 10 a.m. yesterday. And you can just pick from among these. But these are the first 4. There are several more. It all, to me, looks like a lot of projection, a lot of misogyny. And I went through them one by one. I'm just going to show you, and then you can just decide what you want to talk about. I mean, obviously, the ketchup is hitting. Oh, you want to go back?
I saw AI Alliance.
Oh, wait, let me go. Where were you? Yeah.
Number 9, random photos of him with AI Alliance. Wait, that caught my eye. Isn't that hilarious? Everything else, I'm like, I've seen it over the last 9 years. Wait, AI Lions?
You haven't seen Donald Trump superimposed on an AI lion?
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure Mercedes could find that for us now.
No, please.
Okay, I'll spare you. We won't.
But the first 8 were, I read them, and a normal president, a normal elected official, or a person running for presidency, that would doom them. Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton or Barack or Kamala did any of the 8 before the line, mocking and ridiculing our law enforcement, talking about sedition, blatant lies, a very crass sexual quote unquote joke, which wasn't a joke, just rampant misogyny. But right. Goes back full circle, Jen. This is who he is. And as I have used the analogy, I will bring it back. It's a carnival barker who's lost all his tricks. He is no longer entertaining. He has become boring. So unfortunately, we have become numb to it, which is a problem in America. But the numbness might actually help Harris-Walz, because the numbness in America leads to boredom. We're tired of it. We want to wait for it, pick up the remote, and change the channel. What else is on? A new show, a new carnival barker, a new carnival trick. We're done with this one. And I think instead of the carnival trick, what people really like is not the fear and the hate. They realize that joy and laughter is much more enticing, much more rewarding, right? So they're like, oh, we've had hate, fear, angst for the past 9 years. It was great for ratings. But it's like that movie Monsters, Inc. Spoiler
I love
alert.
it. I love that.
Spoiler alert.
Uh-oh.
In Monsters, Inc., there is a parallel universe of monsters, and they realize by collecting the screams of children, it fuels the energy of their entire universe. But at the end, they realize if we actually befriend the kids and make them laugh, it is 10 times more powerful, right? So I feel like, by the way, I think that's a very good analogy I just used, but I feel like
very Waj. I mean, please, you should be so modest. I liked it too.
But I feel like that is the shift in America. You know what? Let's trade angst and fear and hate for laughter and mirth and joy.
Yes.
Well, I have heard and saw the New York Times opinion piece, and I enjoy opinion pieces that differ from my own. So I don't blame the Times for putting it out there. I just blame that the people who side with Donald Trump used to be that the conservatives had people like William F. Buckley. Now you have people telling us that joy isn't a campaign tool. Screw that. Here's let me tell you.
That was a real. Brian's not making this up, folks. That was actually a New York Times article.
Yeah, it was, and not a good campaign tactic.
Oh, also, sorry. It was an opinion.
Character.
Go ahead. It was an. Oh, which one? Which one are you talking about? Joy. The joy is not a strategy, or the other one. All of them.
Yeah, joy isn't a strategy, and Donald Trump can win on character. I like reading them for a good laugh, but there's a point that, having covered the criminal justice system as I have for the last 40 years and been in many, many criminal court proceedings, I just want to tell you, beware of a prosecutor who walks into the court with a smile. She's going to get you. And that's what Donald Trump does not realize, that smile is because she's a happier warrior. She's got something in her briefcase he don't know about. And that's not going to, it doesn't bode well. Anytime I've ever seen a prosecutor with a smile, it never bodes well for the defense. Donald Trump's in big trouble and he doesn't even know it. He continues, like you said, Watch, with all the boring crap that, quite frankly, even Trumpers are tired of. His hardcore evangelicals who will vote for him because they believe he's Jesus will stick around. The rest of them, I don't know.
Well, speaking of Jesus, I got something for you. But before I talk about Jesus, I would like to say, guys, please subscribe to Mary Trump Media. You don't need to change the channel because we're here. You get Mary, and you get Nerd Avengers every Tuesday, Thursday, and a lot of us also have other channels. But just go ahead and do that. Okay, so in our final moments, guys, I would like to talk about Jesus, and you know that I'm Jewish, and Waj is also Jewish. I mean, Muslim, same thing. It's kind of like cousins.
Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim together, all three. So
all of it. And for us, speaking for Waj and myself, I believe we see Jesus as a real human being who lived in a prophet, right? Is that correct? Of some type?
Yeah, we revere him as a prophet, one of the major prophets, but not Son of God.
Right, but I'm cool. I believe that it's cool if you think that. I will never condemn anyone else's religion, but I'm laying the groundwork here to say that we believe he existed. So at least we're on the same page on that. And I have a very different idea of Jesus than Donald Trump. So let's play this and we'll talk on the other side.
They demonize you a lot. They make a big deal out of the fact that you said you
a really honest vote counter. I do great with the Hispanics. Great.
Jesus.
Okay.
As the Catholic in the room, let me just say what he's saying there. It's going to take a miracle for him to win California.
So we've got a lot of stuff about two things about Christians and Jesus. He really does need the evangelical vote because they are, when they vote, which they actually vote more than most people do. We have some data on that. They really do vote in huge numbers, yep. Could be 80-ish% or more for Donald Trump. That's the fact. And also, this thing about California, he is delusional. He's actually saying that a Republican could win California if Jesus were a vote counter. And I really feel like if Jesus did come back, whether as a prophet or the Son of God, and came down to earth, I really don't think helping Donald Trump cheat in an election would be on the top of his agenda. Maybe ending war, starvation. I mean, thoughts on this, Waj?
He would lead the undocumented immigrants against Donald Trump. Every single group that Donald Trump has mocked and ridiculed, Jesus would be on their side. He was on the side of the oppressed, the marginalized, and as an advocate of the marginalized and oppressed, he was the enemy of the wealthy and the powerful. That's why they hated him. That's why they loathed him, because his message was to uplift everyone. If Jesus comes back and he saw that Donald Trump was in power, he would be the first one against him. So that's the truth of Jesus.
Brian, I'm going to thank you, Waj. I'm going to give you the last word. You can pivot from Jesus if you dare to anything else. Actually, no, you can speak last. Then we'll circle back on Waj because he didn't know that was going to be the last thing he was going to say. So go ahead, Brian.
Well, I will not pivot away from Jesus as the Catholic boy and former altar boy in the room. I will merely say that if you want to quote Jesus, please read the Beatitudes, and then you'll understand what Jesus was about. Treating your brother as yourself, making sure that you take care of the poor, the infirm. Those, if you want to read, and I remember there was a priest who told me, and this is well publicized. He started reading the Beatitudes in church, and he had some church member come to him and say, "Well, what are you doing quoting that communist crap?" And he said, "Listen, that's Jesus." And he goes, "Well, that's too soft. You got to change your tone. If you want to really teach Jesus, it isn't the 10 Commandments. It's the Beatitudes, folks. Read them and find out what it's really about." Waj nailed it. It's about taking care of the oppressed, taking care of those who are marginalized, taking care of those in society who have no help. It doesn't help to help out the rich, help out the poor.
Waj, your last word?
If Jesus was to come back at this time, Trump and GOP would cancel him for being woke.
And my final word on this is, you've heard the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus said that a rich man would get into heaven. It just is, it's no sooner than, it would be as easy to get a rich man into heaven as a camel through the eye of a needle. And the only good thing about that for Donald Trump is he's a phony baloney billionaire.
And he's a fatty. But that's the Sermon on the Mount is the Beatitudes. So you're quoting.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's my kind of Jesus. Okay. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Hopefully Mary will be over COVID and back with you next Tuesday. But in the meanwhile, don't forget to tune in to Morning Jen on my own YouTube channel, part of Mary Trump Media, 8 a.m. live every Monday through Friday. And now Morning Jen weekends at 4 on Saturdays. Thanks, everyone. Oh, and Brian, you've got a show.
That's called Reverse Shot. Drops every Saturday at 2 p.m. on the Mary Trump Network, where we turn around.
Democracy is tomorrow.
And Waj, you have a show?
Democracy Ish with me and Danielle drops tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.